I never thought the sound of a key turning in a lock could trigger a fight or flight response. But when that door swung open and revealed the one person I swore to avoid for the rest of my existence, I realized the universe didn't just hate me, it was actively plotting my demise. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you think your roommate situation is bad, trust me, you haven't seen anything yet. I'm about to tell you the story of how my dream college life turned into a living nightmare, and why I might be secretly enjoying it. Before we jump into the chaos, do me a huge favor. Smash that like button to give me some moral support, subscribe if you haven't already, and comment down below. What's the worst thing a roommate has ever done to you? I'm reading all of them. Okay, grab a snack, buckle up, and let's get into part 1. It was supposed to be a fresh start. That's what I told myself as I hauled 3 suitcases and a box of fragile art supplies up 3 flights of stairs. No elevators. Because of course, the freshman dorms were built in the dark ages. My name is Julian, and I am a man of simple pleasures. I like my coffee black, my sketchbooks organized by paper weight, and my living space completely drama-free. I had fantasies about my roommate. Not those kinds of fantasies. I just imagined a quiet engineering major. Someone who spent all their time at the library, wore noise-canceling headphones, and communicated exclusively via sticky notes. We would coexist in peaceful silence. I finally reached room 304. I took a deep breath, wiped the sweat from my forehead, and unlocked the door. The room was compact. That's the polite word for a shoebox with a window. But it was empty. Perfect. I claimed the bed by the window immediately. I started unpacking, humming to myself, feeling the stress of the move melt away. I had just placed my favorite framed poster of a vintage camera on the desk when the door handle jiggled. Click. The door swung open with a force that rattled the frame on my desk. All right, let's see the damage, a voice boomed. A deep, familiar, annoying voice. I froze. My hands hovered over my suitcase. No, it couldn't be. There were thousands of students at this university. The statistical probability was impossible. I turned around slowly, like a character in a horror movie realizing the killer is in the room. Standing in the doorway, holding a duffel bag effortlessly over one shoulder, was Caleb. Caleb, the guy who beat me for class president in sophomore year by handing out free pizza. The guy who accidentally spilled Gatorade on my final history project. The guy who had been my academic and social arch-nemesis since we were 15 years old. He looked different, taller. His shoulders were broader, filling out his black t-shirt in a way that was honestly rude. His hair was that messy on-purpose style that probably took 20 minutes to perfect. He stopped dead when he saw me. His confident smirk vanished, replaced by a look of genuine confusion. "Julian?" he asked, blinking. "You have got to be kidding me," I whispered. "No way," Caleb laughed. It was a dry, disbelief-filled laugh. He dropped his bag on the floor with a heavy thud. "They put me with you? I thought I requested a roommate with a personality. And I requested a human being, yet here you are." I shot back, the reflex instant. "Get out. You have the wrong room." Caleb walked in, and kicked the door shut behind him. "Room 304. Unless you squatted here illegally, this is my room too, Jules. Don't call me Jules." "Whatever. Look, I'm not thrilled about this either. I was hoping for someone cool. Maybe an athlete. Not the guy who reminded the teacher to collect homework. I did that one time in 10th grade. I shouted. My face felt hot. And for the record, I'm an art major now. I'm extremely cool." Caleb looked me up and down. I was wearing a cardigan. In August. "Right," he drawled. "Extremely cool." He walked past me, his arm brushing against mine. I flinched like I'd been electrocuted. He smelled like expensive cologne and fresh laundry. It was annoying. Why couldn't he smell like sulfur and betrayal? That would be more on brand. "So," Caleb said, throwing his bag onto the bare mattress on the other side of the room. "I guess we're stuck together. Don't worry, I won't touch your weird art stuff. Just stay on your side, keep the lights off after midnight, and don't breathe too loudly." I breathed at a normal volume. I protested. "We'll see," he smirked. That smirk. The one that made half the high school swoon and made me want to throw a textbook at him. The first few hours were a Cold War. We unpacked in silence. The tension in the room was so thick you could cut it with a palette knife. I aggressively organized my desk, lining up my pens with military precision. Caleb, on the other hand, was chaos incarnate. He threw clothes into drawers without folding them. He tossed his toiletries onto the bathroom shelf, knocking over my toothbrush holder. "Careful." I snapped. "Relax, it didn't break," he muttered, not even looking at me. By 8 p.m., I was exhausted. I just wanted to shower and sleep. I grabbed my towel and shower caddy. I'm taking a shower. Don't lock me out. Wouldn't dream of it, princess, he called out from his bed, where he was scrolling on his phone. The shower was the only sanctuary I had. I stood under the hot water, trying to process this disaster. An entire year. I had to live with Caleb for an entire year. How was I going to survive? He was loud, arrogant, and messy. Everything I hated. But as the water ran down my back, my brain betrayed me. It flashed an image of Caleb in the doorway. The way his t-shirt stretched across his chest. The way his eyes, those stupid hazel eyes, had widened when he saw me. Stop it, I told myself. He is the enemy. He is the opposition. He is Satan in Nikes. I turned off the water, dried off, and wrapped the towel around my waist. I took a deep breath, put on my I don't care face, and opened the bathroom door. Steam billowed out into the cool dorm room. I stepped out and slammed right into something solid. Whoa! Two strong hands grabbed my bare shoulders to steady me. I looked up. Caleb was standing right there, waiting for the bathroom. He was shirtless. I repeat, he was shirtless. Time stopped. My brain flatlined. I was staring directly at a very defined, very tan chest. My eyes, against my will, traveled down to his abs. It was like looking at a Greek statue, if the statue was a jerk who stole my parking spot senior year. Watch it crash, dummy, Caleb said. But his voice sounded different. A little choked. I snapped my gaze up to his face. He wasn't looking at my eyes. He was looking at my chest. Then my stomach. Then the towel that was barely holding on around my hips. His hands were still on my shoulders. His skin was warm. Too warm. You, I stammered, my voice cracking. You were standing in front of the door. Caleb blinked, as if snapping out of a trance. He dropped his hands instantly and took a step back. I live here. I can stand where I want. He ran a hand through his hair, looking everywhere except at me. Just move. I need to shower. I scrambled out of his way, clutching my towel for dear life. Go ahead. Use all the hot water. See if I care. He brushed past me into the bathroom and slammed the door a little too hard. I heard the lock click. I stood there in the middle of the room, shivering. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird. Why was my heart pounding? It was just adrenaline. Shock. Anger. It definitely wasn't because Caleb looked like a runway model without a shirt. Absolutely not. I quickly changed into my pajamas, an oversized t-shirt and boxers, and dove into bed. I pulled the covers up to my chin, staring at the ceiling. This is going to be a long year, I thought. 10 minutes later, the bathroom door opened. Caleb walked out, steam following him like a dramatic effect. He was wearing low-slung gray sweatpants and a towel draped around his neck. His hair was wet and messy. He didn't say a word. He walked over to his side of the room, turned off the main light, and clicked on his desk lamp. The room was bathed in a soft orange glow. Hey, Julian, he said into the silence. I stiffened. What? He didn't turn around. He was facing his desk, his back to me. The muscles in his back shifted as he moved. The art thing, he said quietly. Is that what you're actually studying? Or is it a hobby? It's my major, I said defensively. Why? Gonna make a joke about how I'll be unemployed. He turned his chair around to face me. The lamp cast shadows across his face, making his sharp jawline look even sharper. He wasn't smiling. He looked serious. No, Caleb said. I actually saw that portrait you did for the yearbook last year. The one of Mr. Henderson. I held my breath. That portrait was one of the best things I'd ever drawn. It was good, Caleb said. He looked me right in the eye. Like really good. You captured how tired he always looked. My mouth fell open slightly. Was Caleb complimenting me? Was this a trap? Was there a hidden camera? Oh, I managed to say. Thanks. Don't let it go to your head, he quickly added, the smirk returning. I'm just saying, at least you're not studying something useless like philosophy. Hey, philosophy is valid. Go to sleep, Julian, he laughed, turning off his lamp. The room plunged into darkness. I lay there, staring into the black void. My body was tired, but my mind was racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Caleb, my nemesis, my roommate. I rolled over, facing the wall. I closed my eyes, trying to block out the sound of his breathing just a few feet away. But the image of him shirtless, his hands on my shoulders, burned behind my eyelids. And then, just as I was drifting off, I heard a rustle of sheets and a low whisper from the other side of the room. Good night, Jules. My eyes snapped open. He called me Jules. He knew I hated that. Good night, Caleb. I whispered back into the dark, my my voice laced with venom. But as I finally fell asleep, I realized something terrifying. The hatred was still there, yes. But underneath it, wrapped in the confusion and the annoyance, was a spark. A tiny, dangerous spark of something else. And I had a terrible feeling that by the end of this semester, that spark was going to burn this entire room down. End of part 1. Part 2. It started at 6 a.m. Sharp. I am not a morning person. I am a don't speak to me until I've had 2 coffees and stared at a wall for 20 minutes person. Caleb, apparently, is a rise and grind psychopath. His alarm went off like a nuclear siren. I groaned, burying my face in my pillow, praying for death or deafness. Whichever came first. Morning, sunshine. Caleb's voice was entirely too cheerful. I peeked one eye open. The room was still dark, but Caleb was already up. He was doing push-ups. On the floor. Right next to my bed. Why? I croaked, my voice thick with sleep. Why are you doing that? Why are you? Gotta stay in shape, Jules, he grunted, counting his reps. 28, 29. Some of us care about our physical peak. I care about my sleep peak, I mumbled, rolling over and pulling the duvet over my head. Go to the gym. Leave me alone. Gym doesn't open till 7, he said. I heard him stand up. Then the sound of a zipper. Curiosity is a curse. I peeked out from under the blanket again. Caleb was changing into his running gear. He pulled off his sleep shirt, and for the second time in 12 hours, I was assaulted by the sight of his back muscles rippling as he stretched. Stop looking, I ordered my brain. He is the enemy. He stole your lunch money in 8th grade. Okay, he didn't actually steal it. He just convinced the lunch lady to give him the last slice of pizza I wanted, but the emotional damage was the same. Take a picture, it lasts longer, Caleb said without turning around. I sat up so fast I got a head rush. I was looking at the clock. You're blocking it with your giant ego. He turned, grinning that infuriating, perfect grin. Sure. I'm going for a run. Try not to miss me too much. He left, slamming the door. I fell back onto the mattress, staring at the ceiling. My heart was doing that stupid fluttering thing again. I hated him. I really truly hated him. So why did the room feel suddenly empty and cold the moment he left? Scene transition. Campus life / the cafeteria. 3 days passed in a blur of petty warfare. We established a silent set of rules. Rule 1, don't touch each other's food. Broken immediately when he ate my yogurt. Rule 2, don't ask about each other's day. Broken when he mocked my introduction to modern art syllabus. Rule 3, don't bring people over without warning. That Wednesday, I was sitting alone in the cafeteria. My friend Matt, my actual best friend who went to a different college, was ignoring my texts, probably busy having a functional roommate experience. I was sketching on a napkin, trying to ignore the noise of 1,000 students eating lunch. Is this seat taken? I didn't look up. Yes, by my existential dread. A tray slammed down onto the table. I looked up. It was Caleb, and he wasn't alone. He was flanked by 2 guys from the basketball team and a girl who looked like she modeled for Instagram in her spare time. The cool crowd. Move over, Caleb said, nudging my sketchbook with his elbow. Excuse me. I bristled. There are 50 empty tables. Go sit at one of them. But this one has the best lighting, Caleb said deadpan. He sat down opposite me. His friends hesitated, looking at me like I was a specimen in a jar. Caleb? Who's this? One of the guys asked. This is Julian, Caleb said, grabbing an apple off his tray and taking a loud crunch. He's my roommate. He's an artist. He draws weird stuff. I draw portraits, I corrected, closing my sketchbook protectively. And I don't need pity sitters. Go away. The girl giggled. He's feisty. I like him. Caleb stopped chewing. He looked at the girl, then back at me. His eyes narrowed slightly. Yeah, well, don't get too attached. He bites. For the next 20 minutes, I was trapped in their orbit. I tried to leave, but Caleb kept roping me into the conversation. Julian here thinks the coffee machine in the dorm tastes like burnt rubber, Caleb announced. It does, I argued. It tastes like despair. See? Caleb smirked at his friends. Dramatic. But here's the weird part. Every time the basketball guy, his name was Tyler, I think, tried to make a joke at my expense, Caleb shut it down. Look at his sweater, Tyler laughed at one point. Did your grandma knit that? I opened my mouth to defend my vintage thrift store find, but Caleb beat me to it. Actually, Caleb said, his voice dropping an octave, it looks good on him. Better than that polyester trash you're wearing, Ty. The table went silent. Tyler looked shocked. I looked shocked. Caleb just continued eating his apple like he hadn't just defended my honor over a cardigan. I looked at him, searching for the punchline. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at Tyler with a gaze that said back off. My stomach did a somersault. Why did he do that? He insults me every day. Why couldn't Tyler insult me? As they got up to leave for practice, Caleb lingered behind for a second. He leaned down, his face inches from my ear. For the record, he whispered, his breath warm against my neck. That sweater is ugly. But only I get to say that. He pulled back, winked, and walked away. I sat there, frozen, clutching my sketchbook. My face felt like it was on fire. Was that possessiveness? No. Impossible. He was just being a jerk. A territorial jerk. Scene transition, the library late night. That night, I escaped to the library. The dorm room was too small for the confusing energy Caleb was putting out. I needed space. I needed silence. I found a secluded corner in the back, surrounded by dusty history books. I spread out my charcoal pencils and my assignment, a study of human anatomy. Hands, specifically. I was struggling. Hands are impossible. I had been erasing the same thumb for 20 minutes when a shadow fell over my paper. You're drawing it wrong. I jumped, dropping my charcoal. Caleb was leaning against the bookshelf, arms crossed over his chest. He was wearing a hoodie. My hoodie? No, wait. It looked like mine, but it fit him way better. Are you stalking me? I hissed. Do you have a tracking chip on me? Please, he scoffed, pulling out a chair and sitting backwards on it, straddling the seat. I came to study. I saw your hair sticking up over the cubicle wall. It's hard to miss. I self-consciously flattened my hair. Go study then. I'm busy. You're struggling, he corrected. He reached out and tapped the paper. The tension in the knuckles is wrong. If the hand is making a fist, the tendons should be tighter here. I stared at him. Since when are you an expert on anatomy? You're a business major. I play sports, genius. I know how muscles work. He held out his hand. Give me the pencil. No. Julian, give me the pencil. His voice was low, commanding. Without thinking, I handed it to him. Our fingers brushed. A spark, literal static electricity, zapped us both. I pulled back sharply. Caleb didn't flinch, but his eyes widened just a fraction. He stared at me for a beat too long. The air in the library suddenly felt very thin. Right, he muttered, clearing his throat. He turned to the paper. With a few quick, confident strokes, he fixed the thumb. He shaded the knuckles. It looked perfect. There, he said, sliding the paper back. Now it doesn't look like a deformed claw. Thanks, I whispered, hating that I was impressed. He didn't leave. He stayed there, watching me work. Why do you hate me, Julian? The question hung in the quiet air. I stopped drawing. I don't hate you, I lied. You're just a lot. You're loud. You're arrogant. You made my high school life miserable. I made you popular, he argued softly. If I hadn't challenged you for class president, nobody would have known who you were. I gave you a platform. I looked at him, stunned. You think you were helping me? I think you were hiding, Caleb said. His voice was unusually gentle. He wasn't smirking. You were the smartest kid in class, but you sat in the back and drew in your notebook. I wanted to see what would happen if I poked the bear. So you bullied me to bring me out of my shell. I asked, incredulous. That's the worst logic I've ever heard. Caleb shrugged, a small, genuine smile playing on his lips. It worked, didn't it? You're here. You're fighting back. You're not hiding anymore. He reached out, slowly, deliberately, and tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His fingers lingered on my jawline for a split second. My breath hitched. The library vanished. The books vanished. It was just me and Caleb, and the terrifying realization that he might be right. I should go, I said, panic rising in my chest. I started shoving my pencils into my bag. I have laundry. Or something. Caleb chuckled. He stood up. Run away, Julian. You're good at that. He walked away, disappearing into the stacks. I sat there for 5 minutes, trying to calm my racing heart. He touched my face. Caleb Taylor touched my face. And I didn't hate it. Scene transition. The dorm room, Friday evening. Friday arrived. The tension in the room had shifted from hostile to charged. Every time we passed each other, I felt like I was walking through a minefield. I was lying on my bed, reading a book, trying to look busy. Caleb was getting ready. He was standing in front of the mirror, fixing his hair. He had changed his shirt 3 times. Where are you going? I asked, unable to stop myself. Party at the Zeta house, he said, checking his reflection. Big deal. Everyone's going. Have fun, I muttered, turning a page without reading it. Don't wake me up when you stumble in at 3 a.m. Caleb turned around. He leaned against the dresser, crossing his arms. You're coming. I laughed. No, I'm not. Parties aren't my scene. Sweaty bodies, bad music, cheap beer? Hard pass. I have a date with Netflix. Cancel it, Caleb said. He walked over to my bed and snatched the book out of my hands. Hey, get up, Jules. You're coming. I'm not leaving you here to rot. Why do you care? I demanded, sitting up. Go with your cool friends. Leave the nerd alone. Caleb looked at me. Really looked at me. His expression was unreadable. Because, he said quietly, it's boring without you. He tossed the book onto his bed and walked to my closet. He threw open the doors. What are you doing? That's private property. We need to find you something that isn't a cardigan, he said, rummaging through my clothes. Uh-huh. He pulled out a black button-down shirt I hadn't worn in years. This. Put this on. I am not. Put it on, or I'll dress you myself. The threat hung in the air. My mind supplied a very vivid image of Caleb dressing me. My face went nuclear red. Fine. I snatched the shirt. Turn around. I've seen it all before, Jules, he teased, but he turned his back. I changed quickly, my hands shaking. I buttoned the shirt up to the collar. Done, I said. Caleb turned around. He stopped. He looked me up and down, his eyes dark. He walked over to me, invading my personal space again. He reached out. I flinched, but he didn't hit me. He undid the top 2 buttons of my shirt. There, he murmured, his fingers brushing my collarbone. Let it breathe. You have a neck, you know. You should show it off. He was so close. I could smell his cologne, sandalwood and citrus. I could see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. Caleb, I whispered. I didn't know what I was going to say. Stop. Don't stop. Kiss me. He stepped back, breaking the spell. He grabbed his keys. Let's go, Rumi, he said, his voice a little rough. Don't make me regret inviting you. I grabbed my phone and followed him out the door. My brain was screaming danger, danger, but my feet were moving on their own. I was going to a party with my nemesis. I was wearing the shirt he picked out, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't thinking about how to beat him. I was thinking about how his hand felt on my collarbone, and that scared me more than anything. End of part 2. Part 3. The music wasn't just sound, it was a physical assault. As soon as Caleb pushed open the heavy oak door of the Zeta house, a wall of heat, humidity, and bass hit me in the face. It smelled like cheap beer, expensive perfume, and bad decisions. I immediately wanted to turn around, walk back to our dorm, and bury myself in a fortress of pillows. But Caleb's hand was on the small of my back, firm, warm, and guiding me forward. Don't look like a deer in headlights, he shouted over the noise, leaning down so his lips brushed my ear. It makes you look like a freshman. I am a freshman, I shouted back, gripping the strap of my messenger bag like a lifeline. And so are you. Yeah, but I don't look like one, he smirked, straightening up and scanning the room. He wasn't wrong. Caleb Taylor walked into that party like he owned the building. People, seniors, juniors, people way out of our league, waved at him. He nodded back coolly, his hand never leaving my back. It was possessive, territorial, and for some stupid, traitorous reason, it made me feel safe. Drink, Caleb said, steering me toward the kitchen. You need a drink. You look like you're solving calculus equations in your head. I'm analyzing the structural integrity of this floor, I muttered. There are too many people jumping. Caleb laughed. It was a real laugh, not his usual mocking snort. He grabbed 2 red Solo cups from a table. He sniffed one, grimaced, and handed it to me. It's punch. Probably mostly fruit juice and regret. Drink up. I took a sip. It was sweet, sticky, and burned on the way down. Disgusting, I said, taking another sip. That's the spirit, Caleb grinned, clinking his cup against mine. For the next hour, I was trapped in Caleb's orbit. I expected him to dump me in a corner and go find his basketball friends or flirt with some girl. That's what the old Caleb, the high school nemesis Caleb, would have done. But this Caleb was confusing the hell out of me. Every time someone bumped into me, Caleb's arm shot out to steady me. Every time a girl came up to flirt with him, and there were many, he would smile politely, point at me, and say, "Have you met my roommate, Julian? He's an artist. He's brilliant. He was using me as a shield. Or maybe a wingman. I couldn't tell. Stop introducing me like I'm a prize poodle." I hissed at him after the 5th introduction. "I'm bragging about you, Jules," he said, taking a long drink. His eyes were a little glassy, his cheeks flushed. "You're the only interesting person here. Everyone else is talking about football or who hooked up with who. You notice things. I froze. What? You notice things, he repeated, looking down at me. The crowd surged around us, pushing us closer together. His chest bumped against my shoulder. Like that time in 10th grade when you noticed I was failing math before the teacher even graded the test. You left your notes on my desk. My heart hammered against my ribs. I didn't do that for you. I did it because your sighing was annoying me. Liar, he whispered. Suddenly, the vibe shifted. A guy I didn't recognize, tall, wearing a leather jacket, looking like a bad news cliché, pushed through the crowd and stopped in front of us. He looked at Caleb, then his eyes slid to me. He looked me up and down slowly. Predatory. Hey, the guy said, ignoring Caleb completely. He smiled at me. It was a slick, practiced smile. I haven't seen you around before. You a transfer? I blinked, surprised to be addressed directly. No. Freshman. Cute, the guy said. He took a step closer, invading my personal space. I'm Leo. You look like you need saving from this lame party. Want to go get some fresh air? I opened my mouth to say a polite no, but a shadow fell over me. Caleb stepped in front of me, physically blocking Leo's view. His back was to me, but I could see his shoulders tense up under his black t-shirt. He's good, Caleb said. His voice was cold, menacingly calm. He's with me. Leo chuckled, looking Caleb up and down. Relax, man. I'm just asking him a question. Unless you're his boyfriend. The world stopped. The music seemed to fade into a dull roar. Boyfriend. I held my breath, waiting for Caleb to laugh, to shove me away, to make a joke about how absurd that was. Me, dating Julian? As if. But Caleb didn't laugh. He took a step closer to Leo, dominating the space. I'm his roommate, Caleb said, his voice dropping an octave. And he's not interested. Walk away, Leo. Leo held Caleb's gaze for a tense second. Then he shrugged, laughed nervously, and backed off. Whatever, dude. Chill. He disappeared into the crowd. Caleb turned around slowly. His jaw was clenched tight. He looked furious. Are you okay? He asked sharply. Yeah, I stammered. I can handle myself, you know. I didn't need you to go full bodyguard mode. He was a creep, Caleb snapped. He grabbed my arm, gentle but firm. Let's go outside. It's too loud in here. He didn't wait for an answer. He dragged me through the kitchen, out the back door, and onto the porch. The cool night air hit us like a bucket of water. The noise of the party was muffled here. The backyard was empty except for a few smokers near the fence. Caleb let go of my arm and leaned against the railing, taking a deep breath. He ran a hand through his hair, messing up the perfect style he'd spent 20 minutes on. I stood there, shivering slightly in my thin button-down shirt. The shirt he picked out. Why did you do that? I asked quietly. Caleb didn't look at me. He was staring at the moon. Do what? Act like I belong to you. He turned his head slowly. His eyes were dark, unreadable pools in the moonlight. Maybe I just don't like sharing. My breath hitched. Sharing what? Your nemesis. Is that what we still are? Caleb asked. He pushed off the railing and walked toward me. 1 step. 2 steps. Nemesis. He stopped when he was inches away. I had to tilt my head back to look at him. I don't know, I whispered. My voice betrayed me. It sounded breathless. Wanting. You know, Caleb said softly, when you fixed my math grade. I wanted to thank you, but I was a stupid kid with too much pride. So I pulled your pigtails instead. I didn't have pigtails, Caleb. Metaphorical pigtails, he smirked. He reached out and touched the collar of my shirt. His fingers grazed my skin, sending electric shocks down my spine. I pulled your metaphorical pigtails because it was the only way to get you to look at me. I stared at him. You wanted me to look at you? Julian, he sighed, sounding exasperated. I have spent the last 4 years doing everything in my power to make sure you were looking at me. Even if you were glaring. Even if you hated me. At least I was the center of your attention. My brain short-circuited. Wait, was he saying? You're drunk, I said, trying to step back. But the railing was behind me. I was trapped. I'm tipsy, he corrected. There's a difference. Drunk Caleb would be singing karaoke. Tipsy Caleb is just honest. He leaned in closer. His hand moved from my collar to my cheek. His thumb brushed over my cheekbone. His skin was rough, calloused from basketball, but his touch was incredibly gentle. You look good tonight, Jules, he murmured. Really good. When that guy looked at you, I wanted to punch him. Violence isn't the answer, I squeaked. Sometimes it is, he whispered. His gaze dropped to my lips, then back up to my eyes. My heart was beating so loud I was sure he could hear it. Kiss me, I thought. The thought was so loud it almost echoed. Just kiss me and get it over with, so I can stop wondering. Caleb leaned in. His eyes fluttered shut. I closed mine too, tilting my chin up. Bang! The back door flew open, hitting the wall with a deafening crash. Caleb, there you are. We jumped apart like guilty magnets. Matt, my best friend from back home, who apparently was at this party too, stumbled onto the porch, holding a slice of pizza. Dude, Matt yelled, oblivious to the thick, romantic tension he had just murdered. I've been looking everywhere for you. And, oh my God, is that Julian? Why is he wearing a shirt that actually fits? Who are you, and what have you done with my nerdy friend? Caleb ran a hand down his face, groaning. Timing, Matt. Work on your timing. I was hyperventilating. I couldn't look at Caleb. I couldn't look at Matt. My face felt like it was radiating heat, like a supernova. I need to go to the bathroom, I blurted out. I pushed past Caleb, ignoring the way his hand reached out to catch me. I dodged Matt and ran back inside the house. I didn't go to the bathroom. I went straight for the front door. I needed to leave. I needed to breathe. I needed to process the fact that my arch nemesis, the bane of my existence, had just admitted he spent 4 years trying to get my attention. I burst out onto the front lawn and started walking. Fast. The cool air felt good on my burning face. I wrapped my arms around myself, walking down the sidewalk toward the dorms. Julian, wait. I walked faster. Julian. Footsteps pounded on the pavement behind me. Heavy, athletic strides. A hand grabbed my wrist and spun me around. Caleb was panting slightly. He looked wild. His hair was a mess, his eyes wide. You don't get to run away this time, he said, breathing hard. Not after that. After what? I shouted, yanking my arm back. After you almost kissed me? Or after you told me you've been messing with my life for years because you have some twisted need for attention? It wasn't just attention. Caleb yelled back. We were standing under a street lamp. The light flickered above us, casting long shadows. Then what was it? I demanded, tears pricking my eyes. Because from where I'm standing, it felt like you just liked making me miserable. It was because you were the only one who didn't care about the popularity crap. Caleb shouted, throwing his hands up. Everyone else just wanted to be around Caleb the athlete, or Caleb the party guy. You looked at me like I was an idiot. You challenged me. You were real. He stepped closer, his voice dropping to a desperate whisper. You were the only thing that felt real, Julian. I stared at him. The anger drained out of me, replaced by a terrifying vulnerability. So you tormented me? I didn't know how else to be close to you, he admitted. He looked defeated. He looked like a little boy who had broken a window. Silence stretched between us. Cars passed by on the main road, their headlights sweeping over us, but it felt like we were the only 2 people on Earth. You're an idiot, I whispered. Caleb let out a shaky breath. A small, hopeful smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. Yeah, I know, but I'm your idiot roommate. My nemesis, I corrected, but there was no heat in it. Can we resign? Caleb asked. He took a hesitant step forward. From being nemesis? Can we try something else? Like what? Like friends, he suggested. Then his eyes darkened, that intensity returning. Or, whatever we were doing on the porch before Matt ruined it. My heart did a flip. I don't know if I can be friends with someone who steals my yogurt, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Caleb laughed. He reached out and very slowly took my hand. His fingers laced through mine. It fit perfectly. It was annoying how perfectly it fit. I'll buy you a lifetime supply of yogurt, he promised. Just don't run away. Walk back with me. I looked at our joined hands. Then I looked up at him. Okay, I said. But you're carrying my bag. Caleb grinned, a real, blinding, beautiful grin that made my knees weak. He swung my bag onto his shoulder without letting go of my hand. Deal. We walked back to the dorm in silence. But it wasn't the awkward silence of the first night. It was a comfortable, heavy silence. The kind that is filled with unspoken words and promises. When we got to room 304, Caleb unlocked the door. We stepped into the darkness. He didn't let go of my hand immediately. We stood there in the dark, the only light coming from the hallway. Good night, Julian, he said softly. He squeezed my hand once, then released it. Good night, Caleb, I whispered. He walked to his bed. I walked to mine. I lay down, staring at the ceiling again. But this time, I wasn't dreading the morning. I touched my lips, remembering how close he had been. My nemesis was gone, and in his place was something much, much more complicated. And as I closed my eyes, I realized the scariest part wasn't that I was starting to like him. The scariest part was that I was pretty sure I was already in love with him. End of part 3. Part 4. Waking up felt different. Usually, my first thought in the morning was a strategic calculation of how to avoid Caleb. Is he in the shower? Is he doing push-ups? Can I make it to the door without eye contact? But today, my first thought was the ghost of warmth on my hand. I opened my eyes and stared at the ceiling. The events of last night came rushing back like a montage from a rom-com I would never admit to watching. The party, the jealous confrontation, the walk home, the hand-holding. Oh God, the hand-holding. I groaned and pulled the pillow over my face. Had that actually happened? Had Caleb Taylor, captain of the basketball team, king of the social hierarchy, and my sworn enemy since freshman year of high school, really asked if we could be more than nemesis? You're going to suffocate yourself, a voice said. I froze. And then I'd have to explain to the RA why my roommate died of embarrassment. The voice continued, closer this time. I slowly lowered the pillow. Caleb was sitting on the edge of his bed, fully dressed in a crisp gray hoodie and black jeans. He was looking at me, and he wasn't smirking. He was smiling, a soft, sleepy, I know what you did last summer kind of smile. And in his hand, he held a cardboard cup. Coffee, he said, extending it toward me. Black, 2 sugars. From the good cafe on 4th Street, not the sludge from the dining hall. I sat up, ignoring my bedhead. I stared at the cup like it was a holy grail. You walked 4 blocks for coffee? I went for a run, he shrugged, but his ears turned a faint shade of pink. It was on the way. Take it before I drink it. I took the cup. Our fingers brushed. The electricity was still there, buzzing under my skin. Thanks, I mumbled, taking a sip. It was perfect. So, about last night. Caleb's expression shifted. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. The playful vibe evaporated, replaced by that intense focus that made my stomach do flips. I meant it, Julian, he said quietly. Every word. Even the part about tormenting me for attention? Especially that part, he admitted. Look, I know we have history. Bad history. I was a jerk. A massive jerk. But I don't want to fight with you anymore. Unless it's about whose turn it is to take out the trash. I traced the rim of the coffee cup. And what are we now? If we're not fighting. We're. Caleb hesitated. He looked at the floor, then back at me. We're figuring it out. Is that okay? I looked at him. The boy who used to make my life hell was now bringing me coffee and looking at me like I was the only person in the room. Yeah, I whispered. That's okay. Scene transition. The campus courtyard midday. By noon, the figuring it out phase was already proving to be complicated. We had agreed to walk to the library together. A simple task. But walking with Caleb Taylor was never simple. As we crossed the main quad, I could feel eyes on us. People whispered. A few girls from his fan club stopped talking as we passed. Ignore them, Caleb said, sensing my anxiety. He shifted closer to me, his shoulder brushing mine. It was a subtle claim of territory. I'm trying, I muttered, gripping my sketchbook. But they're looking at me like I'm a glitch in the simulation. Why is the king hanging out with the peasant? You're not a peasant, Jules. You're an artist. That's way cooler. Stop being nice to me. It's unnerving. Get used to it. We reached the library steps. I was feeling surprisingly good. Maybe this could work. Maybe we could actually be friends. Maybe something more. And then disaster struck. Caleb Taylor. The voice was smooth, confident, and sounded like expensive silk. We both stopped. Standing at the top of the stairs was a guy. He was tall, maybe even taller than Caleb. He had sandy blonde hair styled to perfection, piercing blue eyes, and he was wearing a navy blazer that probably cost more than my entire tuition. Caleb went rigid beside me. His relaxed posture vanished instantly. Elias, Caleb said. His voice was ice cold. It is you. The guy, Elias, walked down the steps with a graceful, predatory elegance. He stopped 2 steps above us, looking down. I heard you transferred here. I didn't believe it. I thought you were destined for the Ivy League. Things change, Caleb said shortly. He didn't introduce me. In fact, he took a half step in front of me, shielding me. Elias laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. It was the kind of laugh that made you feel small. Things change, Elias repeated, his eyes drifting past Caleb to land on me. He looked me up and down, dissecting me with a single glance. And I see your taste has changed too. My stomach dropped. Who is this guy? Leave it, Elias, Caleb warned. His hands were curled into fists at his sides. Oh, come on, Cal, Elias smirked, using a nickname I had never heard. Don't tell me you're actually friends with this one? He looks like he breaks if you touch him. He's worth 10 of you, Caleb snapped. The venom in his voice shocked me. Elias raised an eyebrow. Protective. I like it. Remember when you used to be protective of me? Before you panicked. The air was sucked out of the conversation. Before you panicked. I looked at Caleb. He was pale. He looked sick. We're leaving, Caleb said. He grabbed my arm, harder than usual, and turned us around. See you around, Cal. Elias called after us. I'm in the law building. Come visit. We have unfinished business. Caleb didn't look back. He dragged me across the quad, walking so fast I had to jog to keep up. Caleb, wait. I pulled my arm free when we were safely behind the science building. Who was that? Caleb stopped. He was breathing hard, staring at the brick wall. He wouldn't look at me. Nobody, he said. That wasn't nobody, I argued. He called you Cal. He knew you. He said you panicked. What did he mean? Caleb finally turned to me. His eyes were haunted. Julian, please. Drop it. No. I stepped closer. We said we were figuring it out, right? That means honesty. Who is Elias? Caleb ran a hand through his hair, messing it up completely. He looked trapped. He's someone I knew at summer camp. 2 years ago. And, Caleb swallowed hard. And he's the reason I started bullying you again in junior year. I blinked. What? I liked him, okay? Caleb blurted out. At camp. We were close. But then he started talking about it. Telling people. And I got scared. I panicked. I came back to school, and I was terrified that people would think I was, So I doubled down on being the jock. I picked on you because it made me look tough. It made me look straight. Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. My heart broke. Not for me, but for him. And then, a wave of anger hit me. So I was your shield. I whispered. You hurt me to hide yourself. I was an idiot. Caleb stepped forward, reaching for my hands, but I pulled them away. I was 16 and terrified. I hated myself for it every single day. That's why I stopped. That's why I tried to fix it this year. By becoming my roommate, by trying to be your friend. Caleb's voice cracked. Julian, he's toxic. He plays games. Seeing him here. He seems to know exactly which buttons to push, I said quietly. He means nothing to me, Caleb said firmly. He looked me deep in the eyes. You're the one who matters. You're the only one. I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to believe him. But the image of Elias, confident, handsome, knowing Caleb's secrets, was burned into my brain. I need to go to class, I said, my voice shaky. Julian, I'll see you at the dorm, I said, turning away before he could see the tears welling up in my eyes. I walked away. This time, he didn't follow. Scene transition, the dorm room, evening. The rest of the day was a blur of lectures I didn't listen to and sketches I erased. When I got back to the dorm, Caleb wasn't there. His gym bag was gone. I sat on my bed, staring at his empty side of the room. The silence was deafening. Was he with Elias? The thought was like a knife in my gut. Stop it, I told myself. Caleb chose you. He brought you coffee. He held your hand. But insecurity is a loud monster. A knock on the door made me jump. Caleb. I called out, hoping he'd forgotten his key. The door opened. It wasn't Caleb. It was Elias. He was leaning against the doorframe, still wearing that impeccable blazer. He held a bottle of wine in one hand. Room 304, Elias mused, stepping inside without an invitation. Cozy. A bit small for 2 growing boys, isn't it? I stood up, my heart hammering. Get out. Caleb isn't here. I know, Elias smiled. He's at practice. Running laps. He always runs when he's upset. I assume that's your fault. I didn't invite you in, I said, trying to channel Caleb's confidence. Leave. Elias ignored me. He walked over to my desk and picked up my sketchbook. Don't touch that. I lunged forward, snatching it from his hand. Elias held up his hands in mock surrender. Touchy. Relax, Julian. I just wanted to see what the competition looks like. He looked at me with cold, calculating eyes. You know, Elias said, lowering his voice. Caleb is confused right now. He's exploring, trying on new personalities. Like this nice guy act. It's not an act, I said, though my voice wavered. Isn't it? Elias took a step closer. He smelled like expensive cologne and arrogance. I know Caleb better than anyone. I know what he likes. I know what he craves. He craves excitement, power, status. He gestured to my side of the room, my messy art supplies, my vintage posters. Do you really think you fit into his world? Elias asked softly. Or are you just a novelty? A little experiment before he returns to the big leagues. He He told me about you. I lied. He said you were a mistake. Elias's smile didn't falter, but his eyes hardened. Did he? Elias stepped into my personal space. Did he tell you how much he begged me to stay with him that summer? Did he tell you that he cried when I left? I froze. No. Caleb didn't cry. Caleb was unbreakable. I didn't think so, Elias whispered. He's using you, Julian. He's using you to prove to himself that he's a good person. But eventually he'll get bored. And when he does, Elias leaned in, his voice a hiss in my ear. I'll be waiting to pick up the pieces. The door handle rattled. Elias pulled back instantly, smoothing his blazer just as the door swung open. Caleb stood there, sweaty, out of breath, wearing his practice gear. He looked at me, pale and shaking. Then he looked at Elias. The bag dropped from Caleb's hand. What the hell are you doing in my room? Caleb roared. Elias smiled, a perfect, innocent smile. Just welcoming the neighbors, Cal. Julian and I were just having a lovely chat about old times. I told you to stay away from him. Caleb stepped into the room, his chest heaving. He looked dangerous. I was just leaving, Elias said breezily. He walked past Caleb, patting him on the shoulder. Caleb flinched away from the touch. At the door, Elias turned back to me. He winked. Think about what I said, Julian. And then he was gone. The room was silent again, but the air felt poisoned. Caleb turned to me. What did he say? Did he hurt you? He rushed over, reaching for me. He looked terrified. Don't, I said, taking a step back. Caleb stopped, his hand hovering in midair. Julian, is it true? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. Am I just an experiment? Am I just your way of proving you're not a bully anymore? No. Caleb looked horrified. God, no. Is that what he said? He said you get bored, I said, tears finally spilling over. He said you belong in a different world. And looking at him, looking at you, maybe he's right. He's not right, Caleb shouted. He closed the distance between us, grabbing my shoulders. He's a liar. He's trying to get into your head. Well, it's working. I yelled back, pushing his hands away. Because I don't make sense, Caleb. Us. We don't make sense. You're you and I'm me. Why would you want this? Why would you want me? Caleb stared at me. His eyes were wide, filled with a mix of frustration and desperation. You really don't see it, do you? He whispered. See what? I don't want status, Julian. I don't want excitement. I want. He stopped. He took a deep breath. I want someone who knows the real me and stays anyway, he said. Elias knew me, and he used it against me. You knew me at my worst, and you're still standing here. He took a step closer. I'm not bored, Julian. I'm terrified. Because for the first time in my life, I have something I actually can't afford to lose. He looked at my lips, then at my eyes. Can I prove it? He asked softly. My heart was beating so fast I thought I might pass out. The doubt was still there, swirling with Elias's poisonous words. But Caleb was here. Caleb was real. How? I whispered. Caleb didn't answer with words. He reached out, cupped my face with both hands, and this time, there was no interruption. No mat. No door slamming. He leaned down and kissed me. It wasn't like in the movies. It wasn't perfect. It was desperate. It was messy. It tasted like coffee and fear and longing. I froze for a split second, and then I melted. I grabbed the front of his sweaty jersey and pulled him closer. For a moment, the world disappeared. Elias disappeared. The past disappeared. But then, Caleb's phone buzzed loudly on the desk. Once. Twice. 3 times. We broke apart, breathing heavily. Caleb kept his forehead against mine, his eyes closed. Ignore it, he murmured. It might be important, I whispered, though I didn't want him to move. Caleb sighed, frustrated. He pulled away and walked over to the desk. He picked up his phone. I watched his back. I saw his muscles tense. I saw his posture stiffen. He stared at the screen for a long time. Caleb, I asked, a cold feeling settling in my stomach. He turned around slowly. The softness from the kiss was gone. His face was pale again. It's my dad, he said, his voice hollow. He's here. On campus. Okay, I said. That's good. No, Caleb said. He held up the phone. There was a message, but also a picture. It was a picture of us. Walking into the dorm 5 minutes ago. Taken from a distance. He says we need to talk, Caleb read the text, his voice trembling. About my situation, Dad. I felt the blood drain from my face. Who took the picture? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Caleb looked at the door where Elias had just left. Elias, Caleb whispered. He didn't just come to talk. He came to out me to my father. The silence that followed wasn't just heavy. It was crushing. We had just had our first kiss. And now my roommate, my nemesis, the guy I was falling for, was about to lose everything. End of part 4. Part 5. He's outside, Caleb whispered. His voice didn't sound like his own. It sounded hollow. Broken. My dad. He's in the parking lot. I looked at the phone in his hand. The screen was black now, but the threat was still burning in the air. A picture of us. Sent by Elias. Okay, I said, forcing my voice to be steady, even though my hands were shaking. Okay, we can explain. We can tell him it was a misunderstanding. We were just messing around. Caleb looked up at me. His eyes were red-rimmed and filled with a terrifying kind of resignation. You don't know my father, Julian, he said. He stood up, his movements stiff and mechanical. He started pacing the small room. He doesn't do misunderstandings. He does reputation management. Elias knew exactly what he was doing. He didn't just out me. He handed my father a weapon. So what? I argued, stepping into his path to stop his pacing. You're 18, Caleb. You're an adult. You can date whoever you want. He can't control you. Caleb let out a short, bitter laugh. He pays for this room. He pays for my tuition. He pays for the car, the meal plan, the clothes on my back. If he cuts me off, I have nothing. He looked at me, and his expression softened, breaking my heart. And if I have nothing, I drag you down with me. I can't do that to you. I don't care about the money. I shouted. We'll figure it out. I can get a job. You can get a scholarship. We don't need him. Caleb shook his head slowly. He reached out and touched my cheek, his thumb brushing away a tear I didn't know had fallen. You're so brave, Jules, he whispered. But you're also naive. My dad isn't just going to cut me off. He's going to destroy everything. He'll pull strings. He'll make sure I don't get transferred credits. He'll ruin my chances at the league. He destroys things that don't fit his image. The phone buzzed again. Dad now. Caleb flinched. He pulled his hand away from my face like he had been burned. I have to go, he said. He grabbed his jacket. He didn't look at me. He couldn't. I'm coming with you, I said, grabbing my own hoodie. No, Caleb said sharply. He turned, his eyes pleading. Please, Julian, stay here. If he sees you, if he sees the cause of his problem, he'll target you. I can't protect you if I'm fighting him. Just stay here. Please. I hesitated. Every instinct in my body screamed at me to follow him, to stand by his side. But the fear in his eyes was real. He wasn't scared for himself. He was scared for me. Fine, I whispered. But you text me. As soon as it's over. Caleb nodded. He looked at me one last time, memorizing my face. I'm sorry, he said. And then he walked out the door. Scene transition, the parking lot, 10 minutes later. I couldn't stay in the room. I waited 2 minutes, then grabbed my keys and ran after him. I kept my distance, sticking to the shadows of the trees lining the walkway. I needed to know he was safe. The parking lot was empty except for a sleek, black sedan parked under a flickering street lamp. It looked like a hearse. Caleb was standing by the driver's window. Even from this distance, I could see his posture. He was slumped, head bowed. The defiance, the arrogance, the strength I had grown to love, it was all gone. He looked like a child being scolded. The window was rolled down. I couldn't hear the words, but I could hear the tone. A deep, booming voice. Cold. Clipped. Authoritarian. I crept closer, hiding behind a dumpster near the edge of the lot. Embarrassment to this family, the voice said. I sent you here to focus on your future, not to play house with some distraction. It's not like that. Caleb's voice was quiet, pleading. Dad, please. It's just a rumor. Elias is lying. Elias sent me proof, the father snapped. And don't lie to me, boy. I've had my suspicions since you were 16. I thought I scared it out of you. Clearly, I was too lenient. I covered my mouth to stifle a gasp. Scared it out of him? That's what Elias meant. That's why Caleb had bullied me. He was terrified. Here are your options, the father continued, his voice dropping to a deadly calm. Option A, you pack your things tonight. You withdraw from this university immediately. I have already arranged a transfer to the military academy in Virginia. They will straighten you out. No phones. No distractions. No. Him. Dad, no, Caleb choked out. My team, my life is here. Option B. The father cut him off. You stay here. But you are cut off. Completely. No tuition. No apartment. No car. And I will make a few calls to the athletic board. I'm sure they'd be interested to know about your instability. You'll never play basketball professionally. You'll be nothing. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush bone. Choose Caleb, his father said. The family name or the gutter. I watched, tears streaming down my face. I wanted to run out there. I wanted to scream at his dad. I wanted to grab Caleb's hand and run away with him. But I froze. Caleb straightened up. He wiped his face with his sleeve. He looked at the car, then he looked back toward the dorms. Toward me, even though he didn't know I was there. I need time, Caleb said. His voice was shaking. You have 1 hour, his father said. The window rolled up. The engine started. The black car peeled out of the parking lot, leaving Caleb standing alone in the cold, harsh light of the street lamp. He didn't move for a long time. Then, he let out a scream, a raw, guttural sound of pure frustration, and kicked the tire of a parked car. He collapsed onto the curb, burying his head in his hands. I stepped out from behind the dumpster. Caleb. He whipped his head around. When he saw me, his face crumpled. I told you to stay inside, he croaked. I don't take orders very well, I said, walking over to him. I sat down on the curb next to him. I didn't touch him. Not yet. I heard him. Then you know, Caleb said, staring at the asphalt. My life is over. No, it's not, I said firmly. We can fight this. We can. Stop. Caleb stood up violently. Stop trying to fix it, Julian. You can't draw a pretty picture and make this go away. This is real life. I know it's real. I stood up too, facing him. But you can't let him win. If you go to that academy, he owns you forever. If you stay, we can figure it out. There is no we, Caleb shouted. The words hit me like a physical slap. What? I whispered. Caleb looked at me. His eyes were cold. Dead. It was the face he used to wear in high school. The mask. Look at you, Caleb sneered. You're a struggling art student. You live on financial aid and instant noodles. You think you can save me? You think love pays the rent? You think holding hands makes up for losing my entire future? Caleb, stop, I said, reaching for him. You don't mean that. You're scared. He slapped my hand away. I'm not scared, he lied. I'm realistic. Elias was right. I was bored. I was experimenting. But now the bill has come due, and I'm not paying it for you. Tears blurred my vision. You're lying. You kissed me. You told me I was the only one. I lied, Caleb said. His voice cracked, betraying him, but he pushed on. I'm a bully, remember? That's what I do. I use people. He took a deep breath, steeling himself. I'm taking option A, he said. I'm packing my bags. I'm leaving tonight. Caleb, stay away from me, Julian, he spat. I don't want to see you while I pack. Just go. Get out of my face. He turned and stormed back toward the dorms, leaving me standing in the parking lot. I knew he was doing it to protect me. I knew he was pushing me away so I wouldn't get hurt by the fallout. But God, it hurt. It hurt more than anything he had ever done to me in high school. Scene transition. The dorm room, 30 minutes later. I didn't go back to the room immediately. I walked around campus, crying until I had no tears left. I felt hollowed out. When I finally dragged myself back to room 304, the door was open. The room was half empty. Caleb's side was bare. His bedding was stripped. His posters were gone. His closet was empty. My heart stopped. Caleb. I called out, my voice trembling. No answer. I walked in. On his desk, the desk where he had helped me with my anatomy drawing just days ago, there was a single piece of paper. It wasn't a note. It was a drawing. It was a sketch of me. Sleeping. He must have drawn it this morning. It wasn't perfect. The lines were shaky, the shading was rough, but it was tender. At the bottom, in his messy handwriting, he had written, I'm sorry. He's gone, Julian. I turned around. Matt was standing in the doorway, looking grim. I saw him loading his trunk, Matt said quietly. He looked like a zombie. He didn't even say goodbye to anyone. He just drove off. I sank onto my bed, clutching the drawing to my chest. He left, I whispered. He actually left. Yeah, Matt said, stepping into the room. But before he left, he dropped this. I don't think he meant to. Matt held out a crumpled piece of paper. It looked like a receipt or a flyer. I took it. I smoothed it out on my knee. It was a printout of an email. From Elias to Caleb's dad. Subject, regarding your son's behavior. Attachment, dorm_kiss.jpg message. Mr. Taylor, I thought you should see this. Caleb seems to be losing his way again. I tried to warn him, but he wouldn't listen. Maybe you can talk some sense into him. Let me know if you need any more evidence. I have plenty. Elias. I stared at the email. The timestamp was from yesterday. Before the party. Before the kiss. Elias had planned this. He knew Caleb would try to move on. He had been stalking us. He had set the trap before we even fell into it. And then I saw something else. A handwritten note on the back of the email, in Caleb's dad's handwriting. Meet me at the Executive Hotel, room 212. 9 p.m. Bring the boy. I checked the time. It was 8:45 p.m. Bring the boy, I whispered. What? Matt asked. His dad didn't just want Caleb to leave, I said, my brain firing up. He wanted a meeting. Tonight. At the hotel. So, Caleb already left. He chose the military school option. Did he? I looked at the drawing of me again. Caleb is stubborn. He's proud. And he hates losing. I stood up. A new energy was surging through me. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was rage. And determination. He pushed me away because he thought he had no choice. I said, grabbing my car keys, my beat-up old Honda keys. He thinks he has to sacrifice himself to save me. He thinks his dad holds all the cards. Julian, what are you doing? Matt asked, alarmed. I'm going to the Executive Hotel, I said, shoving the email into my pocket. I'm going to crash that meeting. Are you crazy? His dad will eat you alive. Let him try, I said, grabbing my sketchbook, my weapon of choice. Caleb forgot one thing. What? He forgot that I'm not the scared little kid he knew in high school anymore, I said, looking Matt in the eye. I'm his nemesis. And nobody messes with my nemesis except me. I ran out the door. Scene transition, the hotel hallway, 9:05 p.m. I ran past the receptionist. I took the stairs 2 at a time. My lungs were burning, but I didn't care. Room 212. I stood in front of the heavy wooden door. I could hear voices inside, shouting. You can't do this. That was Caleb. He hadn't left town. He was here. He was fighting. I can and I will. That was his father. You sign these papers, you go to the academy, and you forget that boy ever existed. I can't forget him. Caleb yelled. The sound of something shattering glass echoed through the door. He's the only thing that makes sense. My hand hovered over the door handle. This was it. If I went in there was no going back. I would be declaring war on a powerful man. I would be risking my scholarship, my reputation, everything. But then I remembered Caleb's hand on mine. I remembered the kiss. I remembered the look in his eyes when he said, I'm terrified. I took a deep breath. Screw it. I didn't knock. I kicked the door open. The room froze. Caleb was standing by the window, chest heaving, a broken vase on the floor near his feet. He looked wild, desperate. His father was sitting in an armchair, looking unbothered, holding a pen out to Caleb. And sitting on the sofa, looking like the cat who ate the canary, was Elias. They all turned to look at me. I stood in the doorway, panting, sweating, holding my sketchbook like a shield. Julian, Caleb whispered, his face draining of color. Get out. What are you doing here? I'm refusing the breakup, I said, stepping into the room and slamming the door behind me. I looked at his father, then at Elias, then back at Caleb. You said we were figuring it out, I said, my voice steady and loud. So let's figure it out. Right now. All of us. Caleb's dad stood up, his face turning a shade of purple. Who do you think you are, bursting in here? I'm the distraction, I said, glaring at him. And I have something to say. I walked to the center of the room, right between Caleb and his father. And you're not going to like it. End of part 5. Part 6. Refusing the breakup? Caleb's father, Mr. Taylor, repeated. He stood up slowly, smoothing his expensive suit jacket. He looked at me not with anger, but with the cold, dismissive look one gives to a bug on a windshield. This isn't a debate, boy. This is a family matter. You are trespassing. I'm not trespassing, I said, my voice shaking slightly but gaining strength with every word. I was invited. Indirectly. I pulled the crumbled email printout from my pocket, the one Elias had sent, and slapped it onto the coffee table. You're making decisions based on lies, I said, looking Mr. Taylor dead in the eye. And manipulation. Elias chuckled, sipping his drink. Oh, please. The lies defense? It's a bit cliché, don't you think, Julian? The photo speaks for itself. The photo shows 2 people who care about each other. I shot back, turning to Elias. But it doesn't show the context. It doesn't show that you have been stalking us. It doesn't show that you're obsessed with Caleb because he was the one person who walked away from you. Elias's smirk faltered. Careful, artist. You're punching above your weight class. Am I? I opened my sketchbook. My hands were trembling, but I forced them to be steady. I flipped to the page I had been working on during my frantic run over here. It wasn't a pretty drawing. It was raw. It was dark. It depicted a figure, Caleb, bound by strings like a marionette. The strings were being held by two shadowy figures, one looking like his father, the other like Elias. The figure of Caleb looked suffocated, broken. I turned the book around and held it up for Mr. Taylor to see. "This is your son," I said quietly. "This is what you're doing to him. You think you're saving his reputation? You're killing his spirit. And if you send him to that academy, if you force him to be something he's not, you won't have a son anymore. You'll just have a soldier who hates you." Mr. Taylor looked at the drawing. For a second, just a split second, something flickered in his eyes. Regret, recognition, art, Mr. Taylor scoffed, recovering his composure. Very touching, but the real world doesn't run on sketches. It runs on power, and Caleb has none. He turned to Caleb, who was still standing by the window, silent and pale. "Last chance, Caleb," his father said, his voice hard as iron. "Sign the papers. Go to the academy. Or walk out that door with this, nobody, and lose everything." The room went silent. The air conditioner hummed loudly. I looked at Caleb. He was looking at his dad. Then he looked at Elias. Finally, his eyes landed on me. He didn't look scared anymore. He looked tired. But it was the good kind of tired. The kind you feel after you finally stop running. Caleb walked over to the desk where the papers were waiting. He picked up the pen. "Caleb, don't," I whispered, my heart dropping. Elias grinned triumphantly. "Smart choice, Cal." Caleb looked at the papers. Then he looked at his dad. "You're right, Dad," Caleb said softly. "The real world runs on power." He held the pen up and snapped it in half. Ink splattered onto the pristine white contract. "But you forgot something," Caleb said, his voice rising, strong and clear. "Power isn't just money. Power is choosing who you want to be. And I choose." He walked over to me. He didn't hesitate. He wrapped an arm around my waist and pulled me flush against his side. "I choose him," Caleb said. "I choose the guy who sees me. Not the version of me you want. The real me." Mr. Taylor's face turned a dangerous shade of red. "You are making a mistake that will cost you millions, Caleb. You walk out that door, you are cut off. No trust fund. No inheritance. No support. Keep it," Caleb said. He sounded lighter than I had ever heard him. "I'd rather be broke and happy than rich and miserable like you." He turned to Elias. "And you," Caleb said, his voice dropping to a growl. "Stay away from us. If I see you near Julian again, I won't be polite about it." Elias rolled his eyes, but he looked small, defeated. He sat back on the sofa, crossing his arms. "Whatever. Have fun living in poverty." "Let's go, Julian," Caleb said. He guided me toward the door. We didn't look back. We walked out of room 212, leaving the shouting, the broken pen, and the toxic past behind us. Scene transition, the hotel parking lot night. We walked in silence until we reached my car. The adrenaline was starting to fade, replaced by the crushing reality of what just happened. I leaned against the hood of my rusted Honda, taking deep breaths of the cool night air. "You just threw away a fortune," I whispered. Caleb stood next to me, looking up at the stars. He looked free. "I didn't throw it away," he said. "I traded it." "For what?" "For this," he said. He turned to me, cupped my face in his hands, and kissed me. This wasn't like the desperate, fearful kiss in the dorm. This was slow, deliberate. It tasted like freedom. It tasted like a promise. When we pulled apart, Caleb rested his forehead against mine. "I have nothing, Julian," he chuckled, a sound of pure disbelief. "I literally have nothing. No car. No apartment. No money. You have me," I said, gripping his jacket. "And you have a roommate. Although technically, you might get evicted soon. We'll figure it out," Caleb said. "I can get a job. I can coach. I can. I don't know, model." I laughed, wiping a tear from my eye. "Don't push it. You're not that pretty." "Liar," he grinned. "You drew me. I saw it." "I drew you looking tragic," I corrected. "It's different. Let's go home," Caleb said. "To our tiny, cramped, terrible room." "Yeah," I said. "Let's go home." Scene transition, montage, the next few months. Visual note, fast-paced montage with upbeat, indie-pop music. No dialogue, just visual storytelling. Shot 1, Caleb working as a barista at the campus coffee shop. He's terrible at making latte art, and I'm laughing at him from a table while sketching. Shot 2, we are in the dorm room. We didn't get evicted immediately, thank God. We pushed the beds together. It's cramped, messy, and perfect. Shot 3, Caleb studying. He switched majors. No longer business. He's looking at a syllabus for sports medicine. He looks interested, not bored. Shot 4, me painting. A large canvas. It's a portrait of Caleb. Not the nemesis Caleb, but the boyfriend Caleb. Soft lighting, genuine smile. Shot 5. We are grocery shopping. Counting coins to pay for pasta. We're broke, eating cheap food, but we're laughing in the checkout line. Scene transition. The student art exhibition, 6 months later. The gallery was buzzing. It was the end-of-year showcase. My final project. The theme was identity. I stood nervously by my display, adjusting my tie. It was a cheap tie, but Caleb had tied it for me, so it felt like armor. Stop fidgeting, a voice whispered in my ear. Caleb wrapped his arms around me from behind, resting his chin on my shoulder. He was wearing his barista apron. He had just come from a shift, but he looked better than any guy in a suit. I'm going to throw up, I admitted. What if they hate it? What if he hates it? Who? Your dad. I invited him. Caleb stiffened. He pulled back slightly. You what? I sent him an invite, I said, turning to face him. I didn't think he'd come, but I thought he should see that you're okay, that we're okay. Caleb looked at me with that mixture of exasperation and adoration that was now his trademark look. You are stubbornly optimistic, you know that? It's part of my charm. Well, Caleb sighed, looking at the door. He's not coming, Jules. He hasn't answered my calls in 6 months. He's done with me. Maybe, I said. But look who is here. I pointed to the entrance. Matt was there, waving frantically. And behind him, the entire basketball team. The guys who used to intimidate me. The guys who I thought were just dumb jocks. They walked over, looking out of place in the art gallery, but trying their best. Yo, Julian. Tyler, the guy from the party, clapped me on the back. We heard you painted Caleb. Is he naked? Please tell me he's not naked. He's not naked, I laughed. Look. I stepped aside to reveal my centerpiece. It was a series of 3 paintings. Painting 1, the Nemesis. Dark, sharp angles. Caleb looking arrogant, shadowy, untouchable. The colors were cold blues and grays. Painting 2, the roommate. Chaos. Clothes everywhere. A shared look of annoyance. Warmer colors, oranges and yellows. Painting 3, the partner. This was the biggest one. It showed Caleb sitting on the floor of our dorm, laughing, holding a coffee cup. The lighting was soft, golden. He looked vulnerable. He looked real. The team went silent. Even Tyler didn't make a joke. Dude, Tyler whispered. That's actually really cool. Caleb stared at the paintings. He didn't say anything. He just reached out and squeezed my hand. You made me look happy, he whispered. You are happy, I said. Yeah, he smiled, tearing his eyes away from the canvas to look at me. I really am. Suddenly, the crowd near the entrance parted. A hush fell over the room. Mr. Taylor walked in. He looked older, tired. He was still wearing an expensive suit, but his shoulders were slumped. He stood at the edge of the room, looking at the paintings. Caleb tensed. Dad. Mr. Taylor didn't approach us. He just stood there, staring at the 3rd painting, the one of Caleb laughing. He stared at it for a long, long time. Then he looked at Caleb. He didn't smile.